Now, finally, let's talk about the stages in research process. There are 6 steps, but I need to mention that these steps are not really clear, have a clear borderline that says, oh, now you finished number 1, you go to number 2. Sometimes these steps can overlapping with each other. And there are situations, actually, this is not a one-shot game, I'll say. Actually, there are times the researcher will go through the stages round by round, okay? This is because when you conduct research, when you finish, you got the conclusion, you may find, oh, this is new knowledge. Now I need to conduct another round of research. So these steps are just rough steps that people typically follow when conduct business research. The first one is to define the research objectives. Actually, we're gonna devote a whole chapter talking about research objectives, which is the next chapter, chapter 6. So I'm gonna delay discussion of this step for that until that chapter, but let me emphasize that this is the most important step in business research. It will lay out the foundation of everything. It will determine the direction, effectiveness, and result of the research. Okay, so it's a very serious, important step. But the first step is overall, you want to know what you want to solve. Okay, what question you need to answer, what decision making you're trying to help, what kind of conclusion you want. That's the first step. Now, the second step is to plan a research design. Yes, when you conduct research, you need to design it, just like you need to design experiments, right? In chemistry and physics, when you need to run experiments, you design it first, then you carry out. Same for research, you also need to design. In particular, you need to determine how you're going to conduct research, what method you want to use, how you collect data, what method you use to analyze the data, etc. Then once you have the design set up, you can now talk about the sample. You need to collect data, so you need to plan a sample. Typically, we would have this assumption saying that, look, you are interested in a large group of people or objects, and you can't survey all of them, so you have to take a sample. The next step naturally will be collecting the data and then analyze the data. Typically, analyzing the data involves statistics. Lastly, after the analysis, you will be able to come out with a conclusion, and you do need to report your findings. You could either prepare a written report, or you would be asked to present a result in a presentation. Okay. As I said, we're gonna do further discussion of research objective for later, but emphasize again, this is very important. Let's see. For the exploratory research techniques, I want to mention that there's typically pilot study for the exploratory research. Okay, typically you don't want to run a large scale of research before you have a better idea about what's going on. So that's why typically we conduct exploratory research. And for exploratory research, we would launch pilot study, collect data from a small group of respondents, conduct focus group interviews, ask a focus group of people. That's for the exploratory research. Right? So in terms of the research design, basically, as I mentioned, one thing you need to determine is how you're gonna collect the data. Okay, there are several ways. Okay, one is you could use surveys. This is actually the most common one, and I could imagine that many of you would use survey to collect data. We will discuss about survey in several chapters that's coming up soon. Okay, so again, I'm going to defer the discussion for later. The next one is experiment. Just as we talk about, you could conduct controlled experiment. You could also test the market. The third option is use secondary data. That is data already collected by others or by commercial companies. We mentioned several companies that provide commercial data already, right? And the last one is by observation. Okay. Sometimes actually people would think, oh, survey is naturally the best one, but not really. Actually, research design improves as people get more experience. At the very beginning, a researcher would tend to use survey all the time because that's direct, that's cost efficient, and that's the most easy one to do because you have control of what you ask, what information you gather, etc. However, let me give you a very unique example. This is about also collecting data, conducting research. So let's see. I just need to find the name of the museum that I want to mention. Oh, it's Chicago's Museum of Science. So at one point, Chicago's Museum of Science wanted to know the relative popularity of its exhibits. So they want to know which room is the most popular one, which exhibit is the most popular one. Well, for, I guess, a junior researcher, the natural thinking would be, oh, let me survey the customers. Let me send out surveys to visitors, or let me send out surveys to visitors and non-visitors, the potential visitors. Okay. Well, sure, that way you would be able to find which exhibit is the most popular one. Actually, an experienced researcher suggested that instead of using survey, you could do observation. So what the researcher suggested is that the museum keep track of the frequency with which the 4 tiles in front of the exhibit has to be replaced. Now think about it. That's actually a very clever idea, right? The exhibit that visits the most will have the most use of the tiles. So you will have to replace the tile very frequently because of the high frequency of visits, right? So that way, instead of spending money to collect survey, design survey, etc., you could do this by observation, and this costs even much less. Okay. So again, this design actually develops or improves with experience. So it is something we just need to, I guess, learn by doing to improve. All right. Once we know how we can collect data, we will need to determine how we sample the whole population. That is, who want a survey, right? And how many people want survey? For all these questions, we also have a chapter devoted to it. So I'm gonna wait until that chapter to talk about how we sample populations. And I just want to mention one thing, that is, sampling actually is also very important step that will determine the quality of your data, that will be able to determine whether the data you collected will be representative of the whole population, and will also determine whether the conclusion you draw is correct or not. So sampling is also a very important step. Okay. The next step, gathering data. Okay. And processing and analyzing data requires the understanding of statistics, the tools to analyze the data. So you're gonna take another course that is focusing on exclusively business statistics. So in our course, we will not be able to cover much of it. Towards the end of the semester, we will be talking about a few most popular tools to show you how statistics can help with business research. And actually, statistics is used in business research all the time. Whenever you have data, whenever you want to analyze data, you're gonna need to use statistics. Okay, so my suggestion, develop some love for statistics from now on. All right, so the final step is usually, of course, after the analysis, you will have a conclusion you draw the conclusions and prepare a report. Instead of asking you to carry out the research prospectus you read, I actually would ask you to practice presenting results in a different way. That's why you have the short paper presentation requirement. All right. So that's all about this chapter. We just went over the steps in the business research process and talk about a few steps in more detail. All right. So that's all I have to say about this chapter. I'll see you next time.